Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the AAA Show. I am your host, Jared Down. A bit of change of plans this week. And originally, I had planned to talk about the Alberta and Manitoba League within this show. However, some things didn't work out, so it'll be just Kevin Henry joining me today to talk about the Saskatchewan League and the WHL Draft. The interview was recorded here on Wednesday night here, so the standings aren't quite up to par when we get to that part of the show, but always good to have Kevin on the show, and I hope you enjoy the interview. Now joining me of Western Elite Hockey Prospects is here to join. Talk a little bit about the WHL draft that happened back in December. I haven't had the chance to bring him on quite yet and look back at that. Then I'll get into the Saskatchewan League. But first off, Kevin, how's it going?
Good. It's nice to be here. I just arrived in Vancouver here just a couple hours ago, so I'm kind of getting settled in. I'm here for work for the week, and then I try to get out and watch a few games and check in on players in the sort of the Vancouver mainland, lower mainland areas. So yeah, no, it's good. It's it's nice to get back out here. With my regular work, I come usually once a month, and so I kind of kill two birds with one stone. So when I'm here, I can check with my hockey people, plus do my regular job, and that's consulting with the BC Métis Federation, doing some government work that way. So it's been good on all fronts, but for the last 7 weeks, we couldn't really do much because of the restrictions here. So they've sort of they've opened up a little bit enough for us to start doing some stuff at the office. And really, it's I'm excited to be back here. It's I had a really nice flight today, and with the restrictions here, the flight wasn't that busy. So there's only 15 people on the plane, and I actually got to enjoy my flight for once. And that's a rare case, because usually it's the opposite way, and you're just praying the person that's scrunched up beside you in that airplane seat at least had a shower that day or something, right? So it's usually, I hate to say it, but it's usually kind of the opposite when you're flying, right? So but that's that you could do a show just on hygiene etiquette in airports with some people, I swear to God.
Yeah, no, you're not packed like sardines. That must be nice.
Yeah. Well, there's 15 people on the flight too, so we could all kind of get our own seats, and we could all plug in our phones and all the rest of it and all that jazz. So it was good. Yeah, it was really good. It's a nice trip down.
Yeah, well, glad you're able to get out there and take in some BC hockey as well. We'll kind of mix it in with work there, get some scouting done in there. But just kind of going back now, might as well jump right into it. The WHL Bantam Draft back in December. First of all, what are your just initial thoughts on the draft, on how you think how it went?
I thought the draft kind of went. To me, there really wasn't no big surprises. Just with my inside sources and kind of how I saw players, I really felt the draft was very spot on. I think in my first 4 rounds, my percentages were around 94% on my picks, and even on the first round is even higher than that, because I think I had 2 picks that were off, and one player went in the second round and one player went in the third round. But even the player went in the second round, I felt could have been that first round, and the same team took those players anyways. So I guess it just what they felt they needed first. And I think in a lot of cases too, outside of those 4 or 5 rounds, I thought, and it's sort of typical to what can happen in the draft, especially given that we had COVID. It was tough for teams to kind of squeeze in and get all that information. And there's guys like me who will send out a lot of information to these teams, but sometimes it gets, like the GMs or the director of player personnel, they'll get the information. And it usually, when you're looking at a draft pick, I find it's 2 scenarios. They either take the best player available, or they take something that they're looking for. And 9 out of 10 times they go the best player available, even if it's above what they need, just because they feel like they want a more skilled player in general. So that's the one thing that I noticed with the draft. They were trying to do a little bit of that. And, and outside that 6th to 10th round, originally I thought there was only going to be actually 8 rounds. And I heard there was even talk of only 6 rounds. But it went to full 10, 12 rounds. But I found it very chaotic after, I guess, the outside of the 6 rounds, and a lot of it, there were some picks that I kind of there was some head scratchers, but you get that every year. I mean, hockey's hockey, right? And I had some parents that messaged me privately, and they were flustered, frustrated. My advice to them was just stay the course. If you want to play, get to junior hockey, you just keep working. Every player can always get somewhere with one good season, but you have to put in the work, and you got to keep showing that you want to play, get to AAA, create opportunities off of that. I mean, the draft is just the start, right? And to me, the draft is really more important for those first 2-3 rounds, because that's your marquee players that you really want to make sure that they got those picks right, and you're hoping that those top programs get players that are going to help them sell tickets and keep the league viable too, right? That goes without saying. I mean, you can't just have 400 people in Seattle's rink to watch a team if they don't have the right players there. I mean, it's still a business at the end of the day. So that, to me, that's where the draft really has to be important. Outside of that 5, 6 through 12th round, players mix and match. You can argue it almost in 10 different ways. And there's no shortage. The nice thing about the 06 group is there's a lot of depth throughout. And there'll be players that do get camp invites. The only thing that's tough for the 06s is that, given that it was a COVID year, between them and the 07s, so those camp invites might be a little bit tough, because they can only protect, as you know, they can only protect 50 players on a junior list. 25 are on the active roster, 25 are protected. So that could affect some numbers and camp invites for some of this, particularly the 06s, not so much the 07s. I think if they have to lean one way or the other, it's going to depend, where the trajectory of that 07 is, if they invite that 07 over the 06. But I mean, that's yet to be determined. I mean, that could change too. But the bottom line is, if you really want to get to hockey, you want to get to junior hockey, whether it's junior A or WHL, or you want to get down to the US to play any form of junior hockey, you just got to stay the course. I mean, you just got to keep working, and I think that's the thing people should realize from it. But those top 3 rounds, there's some phenomenal, talented kids in those rounds. Wow. This 06 group, I think, is going to, I thought the 05 group was good, and I do think the 05 group was quite a bit stronger in some regard, because you're seeing some real true future NHLers out of there, and you're seeing players like Tanner Howe from the Regina Pats really come into his own. And my oldest boy, Matthew, played with Tanner in Prince Albert, and I saw that coming from 4 or 5 years ago. I always thought that kid was especially a very special, talented kid. But he was always a little bit on the small side, but he was just like, it's like somebody put Vaseline all over him. He was just greasy on the ice. You couldn't hit him. He had fast feet. He had fast hands, and he was deceivingly fast, and he could score from almost any angle around that net. And I just thought, wow, when that kid comes, when he grows a bit, and here he is, it's all about timing. He's grown, and he's just doing phenomenal things with the Pats. He's being seen as one of the best 05s in the league right now. So I mean, so hockey's a little bit about luck and timing, and Tanner's hitting it right at the right time, and that's a perfect example of a kid that just simply stuck with it. And he was drafted in the 5th round by the Pats. I think it was 96 overall in that ring. I believe it was around 96. And there's an example of that, right? And he leapfrogged above players that were drafted ahead of him on top of that. Outside of Bedard, obviously. So yeah, there's an example of a kid who just stayed the course, and he just stuck with it, right? So, obviously he was drafted, but for parents that are concerned that their kids aren't drafted, it's all relative. You just got to keep working. But I sure like those top 3 rounds. Berkeley, we happened to play my 06 on the Stars, play against Berkeley the other day. Berkeley Cat, and I just sat there, and I'm sitting there with another scout, and I'm just dad at this game because it's my kids playing in the game, and every time you touch a puck, both of us are like, oh my god! Like even when Berkeley doesn't score, you just notice him on the ice. He's doing something with that puck. He's making things happen. And when you're on the opposite team, it's almost like your heart drops into your stomach, because you're just like, oh no, like you don't want him to shoot, right? It's just because he has a pinpoint shot, and he seems to create so much explosive speed that he can change directions. And defensively, he's a nightmare to play against. He was all over that ice. We won that game in overtime, but it wasn't for I mean, that our defensive strategy was collapse around that net and keep Berkeley the outside and pray he doesn't score. And we just got lucky. And to some degree, I think we got a bit lucky that game, but it was a great game though. Seeing Berkeley on the ice, and that's a kid who when I watch him, I think to myself, in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that kid's going to be hopefully in the show and we're watching him on TV. And that, I see it for what it is, right? I really enjoy that side of the game. That's one of the things that's one of the cool things about, scouting and watching players is watching future pros and thinking, wow, that kid's going to be something, wait till some kids idolize him on TV, that kind of thing. Right. So I enjoy that side of it. It's kind of, it's very special.
Yeah. I'm a little disappointed that being a guy in like Swift Current, Saskatchewan here, that he went to a team in Spokane there. You won't get to see him play as much once he gets to the WHL, but definitely a fun player to watch.
Yeah.
Looking back at the draft, the draft being in December, were there any names that maybe in October that you kind of had penciled in a certain area, and then as the draft came closer, you're like, oh crap, this guy's really starting to make his way up the draft? Maybe fall, which either way, I guess, essentially.
There was actually a few players, and I had gone out to watch some of the 06 team, that's River Kings team in Saskatoon, and they got they definitely have some. They're a very quality talented group, and they're sort of they're sort of seen as the next level kids that were kind of being looked at for the draft, and players that are being keyed on next year for AAA or for the Saskatoon teams or other programs. But I really thought that a lot of players in that team really came a long way, and I'm sure you're going to see a good number of them, if not all of them, in AAA next year. I think of a player like Rhett Ewan. Rhett has always been kind of under the radar, but he's a big kid. He's got good strength. He needs to work a little more on his speed, but he'll get there. I mean, it's just part of his development. And some players just, even if you use the comparison with Tanner, right? I mean, some players just need that time to kind of just keep working on things. And Rhett is a player that's gaining momentum more and more as he plays. There's another player in there too, Mason Krakchuk. I've always thought Mason is a very, very, very talented kid. Little bit heavy feet, but same thing. He's just slowly working. He's getting better, more puck movement, more scoring opportunities, and then you get players outside of the players like that who weren't drafted on forward, and you look at a player like, if you take a few of those players, a player like Sam Grosso, like that kid has got to be probably one of the fastest 06s in the province, and I'm sure we're going to see him in AAA next year, and he's going to definitely be. He's going to make some noise in the AAA league next year and create some opportunities off of that, And I would say out of the players that weren't drafted, for myself, just because there was such a length of time with the 06 group, there wasn't really too many surprises, truthfully. And when I think of players that went up that I thought really made a lot of momentum, I thought actually the two from Manitoba, Clark Caswell and Josh Fluker. I mean, Fluker, I've always liked him. I watched him at the showcase even last year, and I had him down around that 4th, 5th round range, around 99th, and guys saying, I don't know, Kevin, like this kid's gonna he's keep an eye on this kid, blah blah blah. He's going to do this, he's going to do that, and sure enough, another example of a kid that just sort of came into his own, and he got stronger, and he plays a good physical game. He's fast, he's smart, high IQ, good puck movement. Really, just a solid D man, a guy you can build with the D core back there. Then you take Clark Caswell, and even his dad was messaging me one day on Twitter, and he's like, well, I don't know, Kevin, I think you're going to be surprised with that, but I kind of knew. I didn't tell him what I knew, but I kind of knew that something was, Clark was going to go up, and I had Clark around that 30th, 40th range, and some guys were high on him, some guys weren't, but I thought Clark was really, really skilled. Same thing. He was in Regina at that showcase, and I kept my eye on him, and I've watched Clark for a long time, And I knew between a couple teams, I knew Clark was right there. And I thought for sure, even like, Brandon was going to make a push with him. But I mean, obviously Brandon they made an excellent deal with Roger McQueen and Alec from Alberta. Those are two players that certainly like they can build around those guys for sure. But Clark and Josh going to Swift Current definitely makes that team stronger. And Clark just scored his first goal the other day. So that's, I mean, there's a lot of good positive moves that Swift is making. And I for sure see Swift in the next 2 years. Like, the Swift sort of hockey community is going to be happy because that team is going to push hard in the next 2 years. I feel they got a few trades they need to make, and we'll see how this draft goes and their next 2 drafts. But they're definitely making some good steps in the right direction for sure to rebuild a good program there, because they have a good program. It's just when they went to the Memorial Cup and they kind of sold the farm to be competitive there, right? And that's just the spin-offs of what happens. I mean, the Blades, it took them 8-9 years to be competitive again after they hosted the Memorial Cup. I mean, that's just kind of it's a cycle of hockey, right? It's just it's a tough part. It's a tough pill to swallow, it, especially in a community like Swift that is so competitive. And I mean, they're competitive. Their Adam teams are competitive. Their Pee Wee team, or I guess the U9, U11, U13, U15 teams, U18, AA teams, they're all competitive, and it's just a competitive community. So their measure of success is they keep I guess I could say they seem to have a shorter leash in a community like that just because they want to win, right? And they want to win every year. They're just hardcore that way, and I have no problem with that at all. So I think those two are probably the two biggest jumps that I thought that were certainly validated, that I felt that I mean, the proof's in Clark's game. He goes up there, plays a game, helps, pots in a goal. Like, that's his sort of his moments to show that I think he's going to be one of the focal points of that franchise for the next few years. So
yeah, I got the opportunity to see him play the 2 of the games there, and the Swift wasn't holding back with him. They were playing him on the top line all game, top power play unit, and he didn't look out of place. Obviously, there was some just a little bit of maturity, just because he's 15, right? So
yeah, that's right. That's right.
He noticed that, but give him another year, and he could be a pretty good 16 for that squad. Being so close to the community there, you mentioned Josh Fluker. How much do you think of that draft choice? I guess came into the fact that maybe he was willing to come to Swift Current. How much factor do you think maybe that might have been in him jumping so much to Swift Current, I guess?
Well, I think that definitely factors in for sure. Is it the final determinant? Well, I mean, I would say it's 50-50 on that, right? I mean, I sort of get the impression that when you get Clark and Josh, you get 2 players that have played together, know each other well, and you got 2 buddies coming together. And you're getting 2 top-level players. And whether Josh went in the first round or say the 3rd round, someone is going to take Josh. Like, he's just that he's a very high-quality D-man. He's going to play in the league for sure. And actually, I was kind of convinced that Winnipeg was going to take him, but they didn't take him. And he went right in that top 10, and that's fair. I mean, you could argue that draft on some of those picks up and down 5-10 spots in any direction, or even rounds. You could have, because there was just that much top top end talent. And if you look at that WHL Cup, I mean, all those players that were there, they all performed well at the WHL Cup. They all did. There wasn't, for myself, the only, I don't know if there's any surprise. I was actually a little surprised in that, like, I thought, like, I really like Brunin from Mormon. I do, and I think he's a very good goalie. He'll need, he's doing good things, and it's nice to see him with Worthington and Warm, because that's a good mentorship for him in that program to get him ready for Portland. I thought Gardner was going to go a little higher, truthfully, I really did, and maybe some of it was because he played on a team where it was so, like, they had so much firepower on that team, BC, and they were I think they beat Saskatchewan 8-1 and 9-2, and I mean, maybe that just wasn't a fair assessment because he just wasn't being challenged enough too, right? So, so maybe even I was getting caught up a little bit in that, and that's all part of the of that. I guess the the draft picks with the goalies I thought was a little upside down, but nonetheless, those were the right goalies that I felt were being picked, regardless of who went first versus who went fifth and sixth in the draft, that kind of thing. And that was one goal I drafted for was Jayden from Prince Albert. Jayden is really like we played. My 06 son Dane has played with Jayden for 4 years, and they kind of separated as they went. One went to the Stars program, one stayed home with the Mintos program. And Jayden, right now in the league, he's got the top goals against average. He's the top ranked 06 goalie in the league right now in the Sask U18 AAA league, and it just shows you that. And I believe he's taken over that number one spot with the Mintos. I mean, Szymanski can definitely help that team too, but I think Jayden has kind of stepped into and matured. And like I say, a lot of it is timing, and Jayden just to step up at the right time. So when it comes to the Sask goalies, you got Jayden and Luke, and then and Chase Watsky, who's also up there too with the goaltending, with his goals against averages, save percentages. But Jayden is the one that I think that's really kind of been a pleasant surprise. I mean, I think they're all good goalies. They're all capable of winning a game. But just personally, because we played with Carlson, and I got a little more of an emotional attachment to the kid. So I'm really happy to see him seeing that kind of success. And then Victoria signed him, and he went in the 4th round. And so little things like that. Outside of that, though, there's really no one else. I kind of thought that draft was going to. It kind of went the way I thought it was going to go. So and as far as the lower end goes, I think my percentages were 53% on the 6th round and below. But I think a lot of that was we were in a year where there wasn't teams weren't able to take a full year and send multiple people to different areas to look at this player, look at that player, what do you think of this guy, and then they can formulate their lists. And once they hit that war room, they can decide, which 6 to 8 are they picking, or are they picking 10, or depends on where they're cycled at in their program, if they're making a deep playoff run or a Memorial Cup run or whatever, or just a rebuild, right? It depends on where the program is at. So,
yeah, for sure. One guy I want to kind of just ask you about before we move on to the Saskatchewan League.
Yep.
Obviously some NHL history tied to this guy. Again, going in the 9th overall slot to Seattle. I know that people who don't, follow AAA hockey as closely, they might have, looked up stats on the teams and that, and Iginla had a player, maybe two on his team that, they went later in the draft than him, given having more points than him, but with the last name going at that 9th overall spot, how much do you think the name played into it? I don't know much about the player. I don't know what you have on him, but they gave me a little intel on what you might have heard around that.
TJ went where he should have went. What he lacked in skill, he made up in his skating ability, playmaking ability, and the bottom line is he can finish. He can help a team. He can contribute. I personally had him around that 22nd, so just outside the 1st round, or possibly the last part of the 1st round originally. And then as time went on, I kind of thought, I was getting more intel on him and whatnot. I think that's a great pick for Seattle. He'll be a great fit there. I mean, let's be honest. Lineage is a part of hockey, no matter what people think it. But there's lineage in every walk of life. Mm-hmm. I mean. So do I have a problem with that? Absolutely not. I think, matter of fact, that says everything about his dad. It says everything about TJ. When you're getting that, when you're staying that involved in hockey, and you're passing down that knowledge, and the next generation is coming up, and they're enjoying, loving the game, and they're having some success. Absolutely. I mean, he for sure had he for sure will be a great fit in Seattle. He's going to do well there. And, and the Seattle, the big thing is, can they get Celebrini? I know, I don't think he's signed as of yet officially. And I mean, I've had some good talks with Cal Filson. Cal's a great guy. I'm sure Cal's, throwing over the dumpsters, trying to make sure that you get this, try to get Macklin to commit there. But time will tell what's going to happen in that situation. So, but if Macklin doesn't sign, I mean, TJ is going to fit. He's going to be a good addition there. And he's going to be a kid that they can build a program with. So ultimately they're in a win-win situation. I love the kid skating. He's tenacious on the ice. He is smart as heck. His puck distribution is good. Reads his lanes well. Very coachable. And I mean, hey, you know what? You got a problem, you talk to Dad. I'm sure he listens to his dad. It's just like it. I think I have absolutely no problem with the fact. I mean, his name could be Gretzky. I'd probably say the same thing, right? It wouldn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
The kid's a great hockey player. He's worked his butt off to get there, and he deserves the accolades that goes along with it for sure.
Awesome. Thank you for a little touch on that. I'd always jump into kind of going over the Saskatchewan League now and where the league stands. Obviously, you were pretty close to the league, being rooted in Saskatchewan and having family or son playing in the league. Just what are your thoughts overall in the league this year and coming out of COVID?
I've enjoyed the hockey in the league this year, and I thought it started off, everyone was a little bit shaky, a little bit rusty. Warman came out of the gates hard, same with the Blazers. Actually, and I thought the Contacts were going to struggle a little more than what they did, but the Contacts, they kind of kept on rolling, and they started off well, and they've kind of just taken off all the way through. The Patsies, as usual, Darren runs such a good program down there. I mean, there's no real surprise in the top there, and even Notre Dame. That team is such a phenomenal skating, fast puck moving team. My goodness, that kid is, they have a nice blend of third years, second years, first years, and they know which players that they want to pressure to help that team win, to push for a championship. And when I'm watching that team, their turnover ratio is incredible because they are so fast and aggressive on that forecheck. They create turnovers just with their speed. And I think I actually took my phone, and I think it was on one play they did with us. We'd lost them 6-3. This was earlier in the year. And I believe that the turnover happened in the neutral zone, more towards the defensive side of the neutral zone. And it was like 4.2 seconds, and that puck was in our net. Like, they just bang, bang. And it was like, they created a turnover. A D-man went to rush the puck. They pressed him. Second guy grabbed the puck. It was a 2-on-1 across, boom, in the net. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I didn't, like, it was, I almost want to kind of cheer for the play, but I was so mad that they scored. I didn't say anything. But you got to give them credit. Like, that's a hardworking team, and they got a good mixture of talent and speed on that team, and they're aggressive. They're very well coached, that team. That team is just gone stronger as the year has gone on. And it's typical Notre Dame hockey where, it seems like you almost have to win the lottery to beat them in the playoffs. So whoever meets them in the playoffs, they're in for a heck of a series with those guys. Warman, I expected to be very strong just because they have so much. They're quite deep, and they with the additions of Buchert and a couple others, there's no surprise where they're there. The Blazers, same thing. Like, all these players, all these teams that started off the league, and they kind of hit the ground running. They were able to skate over the summer and all that stuff. Those are the teams that really got the jump on everyone. And as the second half of the season comes now, you're seeing Swift battle for Estevan, particularly Estevan. I was actually, they're 10-19, but they're not really a 10-19 team. If you ever watch them play, they're in every game, and they are tough as nails. Boy, that's a gritty, hard hitting team. And you're looking at that last playoff spot, right? You got Balfour, Estevan, 26, 25 points, Swift with 30 points, and you got a 3-game sort of a cushion there for Swift, but Swift has the toughest schedule out of everybody in that group. Stars have I wouldn't say easy, because I don't think there's any easy games in that league, but they got the most favorable schedule. I'll put it that way. We'll see. Well, I guess this last 10 games for them, or 9 games for them, it's going to be playoff hockey all the way through for them. It's good. It's making for an interesting second half. And if you look at even the scores in the games, if you look at the weekend, like, you take, oh my goodness, like, like Estevan is losing a game by 1. Swift is losing the game in overtime to Patsy 7-6. The Stars beat the Contacts in overtime 4-3. Stars lose in overtime, and actually the one game the Stars lost in a shootout. The Stars had the Blazers down 6-4 with 7 minutes left, but when you have that much firepower on the Blazers and you got that much talent, I mean, even just a couple bad shifts, and that's all it took for them to get back in that game. So, but I find I find if there's anything that I'd like to see differently with Sask Hockey is, and I kind of reiterated this to you before we came on air here. I'd like to see that model pushed down all the way to even if we're looking at U13, as soon as the AA programs hit, I mean, the development model in Saskatchewan is very good. The coaches are very good. Like everyone is always, for the most part, for their, they push their players, they push their team success. But what I'd like to see is more time on the ice. So if we're doing a 2-to-1 ratio, maybe we need a 3-to-1 ratio, and let's make sure that all these players and all these teams are getting as much ice time as possible. Because to me, that's the difference, is the time on the ice. Every team that skated over the summer is leading in the league right now, and the teams that are just catching them, they've balanced that out because it's that point of the season where they've had enough time on the ice to balance it out and all the hard work that goes along with it. And that's, but is it too little too late for these teams that are fighting for a playoff spot? We'll see. I mean, it's, it's going to be for 2 of them for sure, whether it's the Stars, Bears, or Stars Legionnaires, or the Bears Legionnaires, however that scenario works out. But all 3 teams push those top teams, and Yorkton is, they're another team where they're not necessarily blown out. Like they lost their game this weekend 5-0, but they just can't seem to catch a break. They've gone through a real dry spell here over the past, I'd say 3 years for sure. I mean, and sadly enough, I mean, it's not necessarily their fault with the COVID situation. So they were, it's because they definitely got talent on that team. It's just, it's a matter of, what's going to take get it out of them. And, once you kind of, maybe after this year, they'll kind of sit down as a organization and figure that out for their where their future goes there, because they should be one of the, truthfully, I feel Yorkton should be one of the top teams. Even I look at the roster, and that's not a 4-24 team. They definitely are capable of more wins in that group, because I know a lot of those players, and I believe a lot of those players are a lot more talented than what they've shown. And then you look at Tisdale. Tisdale was in a rebuild, so there was no secret there. But Dennis is the perfect guy for the rebuild, because he's a patient coach. He's not scared to take the losses and work with the young kids. And that Trojans team is going to do some good things next year. Just if they can kind of keep everyone on board working as a group, like they'll definitely be a good team next year. But they're in every game too. Like I think they've had a couple flubs this year, just like the Stars. We had the one game where we probably wish the kids wouldn't go out of bed that day, but it happens. It's minor hockey, right? You have your good and your bad days, and sometimes those bad days you just you want to crawl under a rock and hide till the next day. So it happens, right? So
yeah, no, I've noticed the competitiveness has definitely tightened up here since just before Christmas. Games were getting pretty close, and we transitioned into the after Christmas break, and like we lightly touched on already, is Battleford. Well, I think we might have talked about it before the show more so, but Battleford's been playing some teams really tight, particularly teams near the top of the standings like Regina, Warman, Notre Dame. Obviously, you being so close to the team, what have you seen from the squad in the last month or two that's translated to the team being able to be so competitive?
I think a lot of it comes down to the coaching there. In my opinion, I mean, of course, I'm emotionally attached to the team, so take it for what it's worth. I really strongly feel that Dale Grayson is probably the most experienced top coach in the league, and I mean that with all respect to guys like Darren McKechnie and that, because I think Darren's a great coach too, but my boys haven't played for him, and I've talked to Darren, I've had hockey talk with Darren, but I haven't had hockey experience with Darren. But anyone I know who plays for him just absolutely says the same things about him. So I think for myself, I think what a lot of people should realize is the peripheral communities to the big cities. You take Balford, you take Yorkton, you take Estevan, and even a place like Moose Jaw, right? You take in Prince Albert. You got to make sure that these programs are staying strong. And if you don't have an opportunity in Saskatoon or Regina, you can't be scared to leave those communities to go to play AAA, because you're getting some of the best coaching in these rural communities, and they have to coach well because they don't have as deeply talented kids. And the difference I've seen, in the second half of this year, especially kind of once, we ran some injury trouble, and that kind of killed some momentum. But the little 06s on the team, they've all stepped up. Trayson Watney is phenomenal. Like, there's a kid that's a name people should remember, because Trayson is going to be a special player. If he ever can commit to 100% hockey, horse racing, I know his mom, or maybe Trayson, will see this and probably give me the gears about it. But a little bugger, he in the summertime, he's trying to get down to 120, 130 pounds, because he does jockeying. He actually races horses. And I'm like, no, get bulk up, like, get yourself strong, that kind of thing, right? So he tends to start slow and then get stronger as the season goes on. But that kid is incredibly talented, good hands, competes his compete level is, you would think he was 6'5", 300 pounds, the way he runs around the ice trying to create scoring opportunities and whatnot. So, but the big thing for Balfour, this is coming from my perspective, is our injuries have subsided. Everyone's bought into the coaching, and the community is very supportive of the program. So it's unique. It's a unique experience for players to play in these rural communities, because you go there and they just want to see competitive hockey. Like, winning the championship is great, but if that team's competing, that community is 100% behind you. And there's no better feeling than when you're in a rink and you got a couple hundred, maybe 300-400 people in a regular year. If you get once we get past all this stuff, and you get those people and they're just pumping these kids up. It's quite an experience. It's one of the better experiences of hockey, I would say. And for myself, the coaching has been excellent. The support system from management, from Sean Robinson, even from the billet coordinator, it's truly a family there. There's no two ways about it. Everybody buys in, and even when they have their family squabbles, I'll call them that, because you can't escape. If you live in Balfour, you can't escape anyone. It's not big enough, So So for myself, I've seen what's been the sort of their secret to success is just staying the course and getting healthy, and then in the coaching, and the players are buying into what Dale and Barry and Colin, like Barry Belak and Colin Carrier, what they're saying. And the players have been they've been great. It's been a good experience for both my boys, and I think last year, when I told when they signed Dane in the springtime, they asked me if I had any questions, complaints. I said, well, I have one complaint. They were kind of shocked a little bit. I said, I'm only mad that my older son, Matthew, never got to play for you, Dale, for a full year. He got 3 games with you. That's my only complaint, and I kind of made a joke of it because of COVID, right? We couldn't do anything. It just, it wasn't Dale's fault either too, obviously. But so that's why I say, I really do hope, because I've had some good talks with Greg Donnelly from Yorkton about this, about how to strategies to kind of get players to see outside the bubble and get them to these outlying communities, and realize that there's some excellent hockey people in those communities, and help them get to pursue their dreams and play AAA hockey, and hopefully get to junior hockey at some point, right? So.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate for those watching that come from maybe Manitoba or BC, Saskatchewan is kind of more of a free-for-all in their AAA landscape. They're not restricted to zones, so you can play wherever you want. It's makes for interesting competition. As we transition just quickly to one more thing here before I let you go, I just want to talk about the Saskatoon Blazers here, and we've talked about how good that 06 class has been, and we talked about last winter even how good this team is going to be, as the commitments are coming through, and even though we kind of saw this coming, still how impressive is it for a a team this young to be doing so well in the league. I think I counted maybe there might have been just quickly four third-year players on that team and a couple second years, but this team is largely made up of first years. Just kind of your thoughts on that squad and the ability to succeed at being so young.
Well, I do believe that they were able to kind of achieve that success because they kept them all skating, they kept them together as soon as they could. Right, as soon as we were starting to loosen up some restrictions back last spring, they were going full tilt. Them and Warman, but particularly them, obviously because you're asking about them. Like that 06 group, there's no shortage of players we're going to see watching. Like you're watching players that are going to be on TV soon. Like that's how good those players are. And there's some players where you're like you watch him and you just know from the years from being around the game long enough. You're like, okay, well, that kid's going to be playing at the gym at 10 p.m. in about 2 years in the Adult Safe League in the competitive division. And this guy's he's going to be on TSN. And when I watch that team, I think of that TSN scenario a lot more just because it's amazing watching their talent. And you would think that, a lot of people would think, well, they're 06s. Can't they be hit? Can't they be this? Can't they be that? Trust me, teams hit them. Like, Battleford plays a physical game. We hit them. And Roger, for example, like Roger's 6'4". Roger might be 06, but he's he's the size of a man. He's 6'4", 190 or 180 or 170, whatever he is. I can't remember the stats offhand with him with his size weight. I'm sure his dad will text me after once he watches this show and say, "Oh, he's 6'5" or whatever," right? But I mean, like, trust me, teams hit him. He's a tough kid. Like they're gritty kids, and they know they understand him and a player like Cole Pearden. It plays like a 25-year-old. Cole is physically strong, mature on the ice, and they all seem to have those same characteristics. Terrence Smith, same thing. He moves his pucks. He'll get gritty. He'll get in your face. He'll take a punch to take a penalty. Chancellor, he'll probably throw a punch back. Those kids are as advertised. They've been all the way through. There's no doubt in my mind that they're that group is. It's not just win on one guy. They have so much depth on that team. Even their third, fourth line guys are good. So they just come at you and waves that team. And the way Scott Citizens runs his bench, he tends to lean on that 1-2, 1-2-3. Then he goes to that fourth line. But that fourth line is more the rest line for the first two lines. But the reality is, all four lines are good on that team. And those top players. I mean, a player like Roger, he's going to be in Brandon next year. I have no doubt, unless the sky falls, Roger will be one of the top players in the WHL within the next 10 months. There's no doubt about that. Him, Berkeley, Pearden, those guys will be marquee names in the WHL for sure in the next year. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, we've talked lots about that squad and the players, and as I was watching the draft happen live, you just kept seeing that Blazers name keep popping up, and a lot of players from the Saskatchewan League. That 05 class was heavy Saskatchewan, and we've seen it even more this year too. So it's good to see for Saskatchewan hockey, and hopefully this is going to become an annual trend.
Yeah, I think so. The 07 group looks great. The 07 group is very strong, and we got a couple local players that are playing out of province with NAX and stuff, and there's no doubt in my mind those players are going to be in the same conversations. 07s are an exciting group coming up, really exciting, and the 08s too. There's a 108 that I'm releasing my top 100 08s here with this January report. There's 108 in particular here that a group of them that I've keyed on the draft, and there's already guys talking about already other scouts talking about these guys and whatnot. So it's the talent in Saskatchewan. Like, we have the talent here. The only thing I'd like to see different is I'd like to see the model change, and not the development model. I just like to see more time on the ice for development, I guess you could say, just the repetition of the development, just to make sure that our players are going at their top, their top level earlier in the season. And then that's sort of what I talked about with Sean Robinson. We were talking about that one day, and I said, Sean, if this is a regular year and Dale ran his skates like he normally does in April, May, June, and then in July, and bit in August, these overtime games that are happening in January, they happen in October. That's the difference between a COVID and a non-COVID year, right? And he says, like, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. So, I mean, we have great coaches here, great talent. It's just a matter of just making sure we give them the time on the ice so they can keep building their abilities, right? So,
yeah, no, for sure. And, it's the development model just has to be put there, and we'll definitely see the elevation come if it follows suit. But I want to thank you for coming on the show again. Always a blast having you on, getting your insight. We'll get you on for sure before the season's end, I'm sure. So, thanks for taking time out of your day in BC there, and stay safe out there, eh?
Yeah, I will. Just one thing I want to add. We at Western Elite, we're hosting a World Combine event in Calgary. That's going to be in May. And just want to make sure that I get talk a bit, just to get that out there into the public. We've done our online kind of push with it, and just making sure, and that's for the 08s. And and we have 08s coming from the US. I have 2 from Russia. We got a couple more from around Europe that are all registered now. We have a lot from Ontario, some from Quebec. So this will be a very unique combine experience where we're going to be doing the on ice testing, off ice testing. We got one workshop I speak where I'm at, sort of redoing like the Speak Up program that they teach, or Speak Out program that they teach the coaching staffs, hockey personnel, and I'm actually switching it to a Speak Up. And I'm looking at it from the players' perspective, and I've invited the families to join in on that. And I've talked to some people from the medical field, that kind of thing, of try to get some input in ways of for players to handle high stress situations. And and we've invited quite a few scouts and whatnot. So that should be. I mean, I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be a great thing for the 08s to be a part of, because their draft is until May 23. So it gives me this half year to watch him, kind of compare him. The idea of that is to compare players, try to get the best on best from across Canada and the US, right? And kind of see where you really stand. And it'll be the first of its kind, right? That'll be out there at this point anyway. So, yeah, so I'm really excited about that. And the January report, hopefully I'm done typing it in the next day or two, and I can get that out there this weekend. I'm going to probably send it on Saturday or Sunday. Okay.
And do they want to if anyone listening wants to get in touch with that combine, how do they do it?
They can simply go to our website, just type in World Elite International Combine. And I'm hosting with a gentleman from Ontario, Brandon Villemer, and he runs BBHS hockey out of Ontario, and he himself is going to be an NHL ref here in the next year or two. I think he's pretty close to. He's right there. He's been reffing in the OHL and stuff, and so we got some pro level guys and some interesting guests. That'll be guest speakers that'll be coming to talk to the players and whatnot, just to try and offer something different, right? Just because you get these spring tournaments, and OHA does a really good job of their combines, and my boys have actually gone to their combines, and they do a lot of the WHL stuff. But this is just something different. A similar platform, but just a bit different in the sense of you get to meet players from around the world, hopefully, depending on what the restrictions are at that point, hopefully none. And it'll be a truly unique experience that we're trying to build from year to year, and then you might branch off into other things. But at this point, that's what we're looking at for this year. So we're really excited to have that going this year.
Okay, yeah, awesome. Hopefully you get a good turnout for that. And one more thing, I just want to make sure you recently updated your Twitter, the Western Elite Hockey Prospects. Is that the correct Twitter handle on the bottom that I have now?
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah. At Elite Hockey 1. Yeah, I thought, given with what happened, and there was so many on the old Twitter handle, I believe there's around 10 or 12,000 on there. But my views are the same on the new Twitter handle. Like my hits on my tweets they usually sit around that 3,000 to 6,000 range, sometimes 10, 15,000, depending on what I'm tweeting about. And I was getting that with the other one, but just there's so many people in there that just weren't even, like, they probably never even looked at the page itself, right? It's probably usually the same people and just people within the hockey world. So I thought, just, as we're coming out of a pandemic and I can start pushing more of the Western Elite now and try to keep building it, I thought it was just time for kind of a fresh new thing and whatnot. And just to try to keep it keep it building and to hopefully keep the platform there for our young hockey players. They can get some promotion and marketing, and I can help them hopefully help them get opportunities and chase their dreams. So that's the whole idea of it, right? So
yeah, I appreciate it. Anyone watching, follow Kevin on Twitter, sign up for the newsletters. A lot of great intel on those letters. So thanks for coming on, Kevin, and we'll definitely have you on again.
Okay, thanks a lot. Anytime, Jared. Okay, have a good night.
Awesome. Yeah, you too. Thank you.